ever come across something that just doesn't seem to add up? Like, how can someone be a deeply devoted Buddhist and also worship local gods? It feels like a contradiction, right? Well, it's actually a fascinating puzzle, and solving it tells us something profound about how we even think about religion. Today, we're going to crack that puzzle by digging into the social history of Theravāda Buddhism. And our main guide for this is Richard F. Gombrich. His work pretty much turned our understanding of Theravāda Buddhism on its head. So we're not just looking at some dusty old texts, we're using his incredible research to see Buddhism as it's actually lived by real people. All right, let's start with that puzzle. It's one of those questions that really forces you to stop and think, and to reconsider what the word religion even means to different people. I mean, really think about that. Can you be a devout Buddhist, totally focused on enlightenment, but at the same time you're making offerings to a local deity hoping for a good harvest? To a lot of us, that just sounds like a fundamental clash, like trying to follow two different roadmaps at the same time. Yeah, especially in many Western cultures, religious identity is seen as exclusive. You're either one thing or you're another. But what if that's not the only way to look at it? What if the problem isn't with the people practicing their faith, but with our own narrow definition of religion? So, to really solve this puzzle, we have to go back to the very beginning. What does it actually mean to be a Buddhist? The answer, it turns out, is found in what are known as the three jewels. You see, at its absolute core, being a Buddhist boils down to this one act: taking refuge. It's basically a declaration of where you turn for the ultimate truth, for guidance on how to end suffering for good. And this classic metaphor explains it perfectly. First, you have the Buddha. He's not a god who grants wishes. Nope, he's the doctor who correctly diagnosed the human condition: suffering. Second, the Dhamma, his teaching. Well, that's the medicine he prescribed. And third, the Sangha, the community of monks. They're like the nurses who help you take the medicine correctly. It's a system for healing, not worship, in the way we might typically think of it. Now, this is where we get to the real heart of the matter. Gombrich's research offers this key insight that just completely unlocks the whole puzzle. It's all about understanding what Buddhism is for. This quote is a total game changer. When a Buddhist monk says, "Gods are nothing to do with religion," it just stops you in your tracks. What in the world could he possibly mean by religion then? The key is this word right here, soteriology. It's a system that is focused only on ultimate salvation. For a Theravāda Buddhist, religion is the path to nirvana, the end of suffering. That's it, full stop. Everything else falls into a different category. And this is the crucial distinction you have to make. A soteriology, like Buddhism, is all about salvation. It answers the question, how do I escape this cycle of rebirth? But a communal religion is about this worldly survival: health, good fortune, social harmony. They aren't in competition. They're playing on completely different fields. So, okay, we have this new way of looking at it, these two different systems. How does that actually solve our puzzle? Well, think of it like having two different toolkits for one life. For the ultimate existential questions of life, death, and rebirth, you use the Buddhist toolkit. But for the everyday problems, making sure your business does well or your kids are healthy, you might pull out a different set of tools from your local traditions. They're not in conflict, they're just meant for different jobs. And this is the absolute key. The whole thing only looks like a contradiction if you think those local gods can grant you salvation. But Buddhists don't believe they can. In their worldview, even the gods are stuck in the same cycle of suffering. They might be able to help you with some worldly problems, sure, but they can't save you. Only the Buddha's path can do that. And with that understanding, the puzzle just dissolves. But why did Buddhism develop this laser focus on salvation in the first place? To get that, we need to go back in time, to see the world as the Buddha saw it. You have to understand, the Buddhist starting point was that life is suffering. So his goal wasn't to try and patch up the world to make it a little nicer. His goal was to offer a way out of it entirely, a radical escape from the whole cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. His message was intensely personal. He taught that your social status, whether you were a king or a pauper, was totally irrelevant to your ultimate salvation. The real work was all internal. It's like he was building a raft to cross a vast river of suffering, not trying to redecorate the riverbank you were leaving behind. So, after all that, what does this mean for how we think about religion and identity in a broader sense? I think the biggest takeaway from Gombrich's work is this. To really understand any belief system, you have to try to see it through the eyes of the people who actually live it, not just project your own assumptions onto it. So, for a Theravāda Buddhist, the real religion is that one thing, the path to salvation. Everything else is just part of a practical, separate toolkit for dealing with the ups and downs of everyday life. It's not a contradiction, it's just common sense. And that kind of leaves us with a final question to chew on. We might not think we have two religions, but don't we all have different toolkits? We might use the scientific method for our health, maybe a certain economic philosophy for our career, and something else entirely for our sense of meaning and purpose. So take a moment and think, what's in your toolkit?